Rain drummed softly against the hospital window, blurring the lights of Shang City into streaks of gold and gray. Ruan Shireen sat at her brother's bedside, watching the rise and fall of his fragile chest. The smell of disinfectant filled the room, clean, sharp, merciless. Every beep of the monitor felt like a countdown. Shireen, Xiao Sui's voice was barely a whisper. Did the doctor say how long? Her throat tightened. She forced a smile that trembled at the edges. You'll be fine. They just need more money for treatment. I'll figure it out. But both of them knew that was a lie. His cancer had spread too fast, too far. Every hospital had turned them away. Every door had closed, except one. The Sheng family. A name people spoke with a mixture of awe and dread. The richest family in the city, wrapped in mystery and whispers of ancient rituals. Rumors said they were cursed. Others said they were blessed by something darker. That night, when the call came, Shireen didn't hesitate. The Sheng family was looking for women to assist with medical research. They offered a fortune, enough to buy her brother's life back, enough to make her forget how her hands trembled when she signed the contract. By dawn, a black car waited outside the hospital. The driver, dressed in a spotless suit, didn't say a word. His expression was carved from stone. As the city faded behind her, the air grew heavy, colder. Mist wrapped the countryside like a shroud. When the wrought iron gates of a Sheng estate came into view, Shireen's breath caught. The mansion rose like something from a forgotten century. Stone walls, tall windows veiled by black curtains, and a strange, silent garden where not even the wind dared to move. Two servants greeted her at the door. Their eyes didn't meet hers. One of them, a woman with gray hair pulled into a tight bun, handed her a thin clipboard. Sign here. Blood type AB, correct? Yes. Perfect. The word perfect made her shiver. Inside, the air smelled faintly of iron and roses. The corridors were dim, lit only by flickering lamps. She could hear footsteps echoing in the distance, a low murmur of voices she couldn't quite make out. At the end of the hall, a doctor in a white coat approached, bowing slightly. Miss Ruan, I'm Master Wei, the family physician. You must be tired. We just need to confirm a few tests before we proceed. He led her into a cold room lined with medical equipment. The walls gleamed with sterile steel. She sat as he drew her blood, once, twice, 3 times, murmuring something about compatibility. Compatibility with what? She asked. Master Wei only smiled, his thin lips barely moving. With life, Miss Ruan. With life. That night, they didn't let her leave the room. A servant brought dinner she couldn't touch. The silence pressed in from all sides. From the hallway, she heard whispers. Is she the one? She fits the profile. Her scent. Master Qi will decide. Master Qi. The name sent a chill through her veins. When midnight came, the door creaked open. A young man stood there, tall, impossibly pale, his hair dark as the night outside. His eyes, half hidden under the shadows, glowed faintly crimson in the dim light. For a heartbeat, Shireen forgot to breathe. You're Ruan Shireen, he said, his voice smooth, cold, and distant. Yes, senor. Don't say my name. He stepped closer, and the air between them seemed to tighten. I don't like hearing it from strangers. There was something unnatural about the way he moved, too quiet, too graceful, like a predator. I was told. I'm here to help you, she managed to say. He laughed, but it was soft and bitter. Help me? You mean feed me? Her eyes widened. Feed. In one fluid motion, he was standing inches from her. The scent of him was dark, metallic, intoxicating. His gaze pinned her in place. Do you know why the Sheng family chooses by blood type? He asked. She shook her head. Because some blood keeps us alive, he murmured, and some kills us. Her pulse thundered in her ears. Us. He smiled without warmth. You shouldn't ask questions you don't want answered. The next moment, he was gone, disappearing into the shadows like smoke. The following day, the servants avoided her eyes. Some crossed themselves when she passed. Others whispered prayers under their breath. When she tried to open the curtains, one of them rushed forward. No, Miss Ruan. The young master. He doesn't like light. Doesn't like light? The woman trembled. It burns him. That night, She dreamed of eyes glowing red in the dark, of a man chained to a mirror, his reflection fading. She woke drenched in sweat, her heart racing. And then she saw him. Shang-Chi stood by her bed, half in shadow, watching her. His expression was unreadable. "You were screaming," he said simply. I didn't mean to." He tilted his head, studying her. "Your scent changes when you're afraid. Why do you keep saying things like that?" she whispered. He didn't answer. Instead, he leaned closer, so close she could feel the cold of his breath against her skin. "Because it's true." A strand of her hair brushed against his fingers. For a moment, his gaze softened, then hardened again, as if he were fighting something inside him. "You shouldn't have come here," he said, his voice low and raw. "The Shang family doesn't save people. We trade souls for blood." "Then why me?" she asked, her voice trembling. He smiled, a small, cruel smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Because you smell like salvation." Her heart twisted. "And what does that make me?" He stepped back, his face turning away, his voice barely a whisper. Dinner. That night, she sat on the edge of her bed, staring at her shaking hands. She could still feel his presence in the air, like a phantom that wouldn't leave. She had come to save her brother. That was all that mattered. But somewhere deep in her chest, a new fear began to grow. A fear not of death, but of the dark, magnetic pull she felt toward the monster who had just promised to destroy her. When she closed her eyes, she heard his final warning again, cold and unforgettable. "Stay away from me, or I'll drain your blood dry." That night, Shireen realized the truth. Her sacrifice was no longer about saving her brother. It was about surviving a haunting bargain with something not quite human, and even more terrifying, falling for him. Welcome back, my beautiful family and friends, to my YouTube channel. I have missed you all. Click subscribe and let me know in the comments where you're watching from, because tomorrow I will be giving you another story, just as interesting as this one, and you don't want to miss it. Now back to the story. The storm began the same night the curse awoke. Lightning split the sky above the Shang mansion, illuminating the Gothic spires in flashes of white fire. Inside, chaos whispered through the halls. The servants ran quietly but urgently, their eyes filled with fear, their voices hushed as though the very walls were listening. Shireen could feel it. Something in the air had changed. The temperature dropped, the candles flickered blue, and from the depths of the house came a sound that didn't belong to anything human. A growl, low, feral, aching with pain. Then she heard his name. "The young master, it's happening again." Shireen's heart pounded. She stepped out of her room, ignoring the servants who tried to block her path. "What's happening? Where is he?" They exchanged nervous glances. One finally whispered, "Miss Ruan, please, don't go near him. When he's like this, he doesn't recognize anyone." But it was too late. The moment she heard the crash from upstairs, glass shattering, a voice screaming, her feet moved on their own. The door to Shang-Chi's chamber was half torn from its hinges. Inside, the air reeked of blood and ozone. The curtains were ripped down, the walls clawed with violent marks. Shang-Chi stood in the center of it all, his shirt in tatters, his skin glowing with eerie red veins that pulsed beneath his flesh like molten fire. His eyes burned crimson, animal, and lost. He was breathing heavily, each exhale a hiss between sharp teeth. "Shang-Chi." Her voice was barely a whisper, but his head snapped toward her instantly. For a second, the world froze. He looked both furious and terrified, as though he was fighting himself and losing. "Get out." His voice was rough, torn between command and plea. "I said get out." "You're hurt," she said, taking a hesitant step forward. He stumbled back, clutching his chest as the glowing lines crept up his neck. "Don't come closer. I can't control it. What's happening to you?" He gave a twisted smile that didn't reach his eyes. "The price of existing." Then he fell to his knees. His hands slammed into the floorboards, cracking them like glass. His breath came in shudders. "I told him not to use the injections," he snarled through clenched teeth. "It only makes it worse." Shireen rushed to his side, despite his protests. His skin was scorching hot, as if his blood were boiling. "You need help." I said, "Stay away." He turned on her then, his fangs glinting in the candlelight. For a heartbeat, she thought he'd attack. But what she saw in his eyes wasn't hunger. It was horror. He was afraid of himself. She remembered the whispers she'd overheard from the servants days ago. The Shungs didn't treat an illness. They contained a curse. And now, the curse was tearing its host apart. Shireen grabbed the knife that had fallen near his bedside, not to defend herself, but to cut her own palm. Blood welled up, bright and alive. Shang-Chi froze. The scent hit him like lightning. His pupils dilated, every muscle in his body going rigid. "Don't," he said hoarsely. "You don't know what you're doing." "Drink it," she said. His eyes darkened. "You'll regret this. Then we'll regret it together." For a moment, he didn't move. Then, with trembling restraint, he took her wrist and pressed his lips to her skin. The first touch was electric. Cold lips against warm flesh, the faint pull of life leaving her. Pain flared, then faded into something strange, almost tender. The veins in his neck stopped glowing. The tremor slowed. The beast inside him exhaled and went still. When he finally released her, his head dropped against her shoulder, his voice low and trembling. "Why would you do that?" "Because I don't want to watch you die," she whispered. His breath caught. His hands, cold as ice, rested on her arms, and for the first time, he looked at her not as prey, but as something human, something dangerous. The next morning, she woke in her bed, weak but alive. A servant was waiting outside with tea. Her bandaged wrist throbbed gently. "The old madam requests your presence," the woman said quietly. Shireen followed her to the matriarch's chambers. The old woman sat in a carved wooden chair, sharp eyes gleaming beneath silver hair. She studied Shireen for a long moment before speaking. "I've seen it with my own eyes," the matriarch said finally. "No one has ever calmed him before. Your blood, it suppresses the curse." "I didn't mean." The old woman raised a hand. "Meaning doesn't matter. What matters is that you can do what no one else can." The words that followed sealed Shireen's fate. "From this day forward, you will remain by Shang-Chi's side. You will eat when he eats, sleep where he sleeps, and, if his bloodlust returns, you will feed him again." Shireen's lips parted in shock. "You want me to? I want him to live." The matriarch's voice softened only slightly. "And for him to live, you must stay." That night, Shang-Chi appeared at her door again. His expression was unreadable. "I didn't ask you to save me," he said quietly. "I didn't do it for you," she replied. "I did it because I couldn't just watch you suffer." He laughed bitterly. "You should have let me. People who get close to me don't stay human for long." Her eyes met his. "Then maybe it's time someone stopped running from you." He turned away, his hand tightening around the doorknob. "You don't understand what I am. Then make me understand." Silence stretched between them. The air pulsed with something neither could name. Fear, curiosity, something deeper. Finally, he said, almost to himself, "Every month, when the moon is full, the thing inside me wakes. It wants blood, pain, life. I've tried starving it, killing it, burying it. Nothing works." "Does it hurt?" she asked softly. He looked up, his crimson eyes glimmering like dying stars. Every second, something in her heart broke, not out of pity, but recognition. He was cursed to hunger for what he hated most. And she was beginning to see the man behind the monster. Days turned into nights. The mansion, once a place of dread, began to shift around her. She saw the quiet way Shang-Chi avoided mirrors, the way he lingered by the window at dawn, as if craving light he could never touch. He was cruel when he spoke, distant when she smiled, but his eyes always betrayed him. When she was near, the fury in him faltered. One evening, she found him sitting alone in the library, a candle flickering beside him. The shadows painted his face in tragic hues. "Why are you here?" he asked without looking up. "To keep you company." "I don't need company." "Then I'll stay until you believe otherwise." He finally looked at her, really looked. The corner of his mouth twitched, almost a smile, before he shook his head. "You're either very brave," he murmured, "or very foolish." "Maybe both," she said softly. For the first time, he didn't argue. That night, as she watched him disappear into the darkness of the corridor, Shireen felt something she couldn't explain. The same fear as before, but woven now with fascination. The man she should have feared most was the one she couldn't stop thinking about. The line between terror and tenderness blurred, and she didn't know if she was falling in love or into danger. In the quiet between their breaths, something impossible had begun, a bond born from blood, anchored in fear, and fated to ruin or redemption. When love begins in fear and temptation, can it ever end in peace, or must it always end in blood? Morning in the Shung mansion was an illusion. Sunlight never truly entered. Curtains were drawn tight, and chandeliers burned low with amber light that never reached the corners. The air carried an expensive stillness, like a painting no one dared disturb. Ruan Shireen had lived there for weeks now, yet every day still felt like walking through someone else's dream. Beautiful, gilded, and quietly terrifying. But what frightened her most wasn't the mansion. It was the man who ruled it. Shang-Chi had changed since the night she offered him her blood. He still wore his coldness like armor, but cracks had begun to show. He'd wait outside her door during thunderstorms. He'd leave tea by her window before dawn. Once, when she pricked her fingers sewing a torn sleeve, he'd appeared out of nowhere, pale, furious, and trembling as if he could smell the blood across the room. "You should be more careful," he'd said, voice low and unsteady. "You don't know what that does to me." "Then maybe you should stay away," she teased, despite the blush that warmed her cheeks. His eyes darkened. "You don't make that easy." She laughed softly, but the sound died when he stepped closer, his breath brushing her ear. One day, he murmured, "You'll stop daring me to lose control." And then he was gone, as if her heartbeat had scared him away. Outside the room, whispers followed her wherever she went. "She's just a blood donor. The old lady is spoiling her. The young master won't even look at me anymore." They called her the blood bag in silk, a stray who'd been dressed up to sit among royalty. Some tried to humiliate her, others to befriend her, hoping to earn Shang-Chi's attention through her. But Shireen learned quickly. In the Shang mansion, kindness was currency and cruelty was language. The first act of malice came at dinner. Shireen sat at the long marble table beside the old matriarch, doing her best to blend into the quiet. The chandeliers shimmered with silver light, the servants gliding like ghosts. Everything was perfect until a servant poured her wine. A sharp metallic tang hit her nose immediately. It wasn't wine. It was blood. Before she could react, a hand snatched the glass away and hurled it across the room. "Who poured this?" Shang-Chi's voice sliced through the air, calm but deadly. Everyone froze. A young maid fell to her knees, shaking. "And Master Chi, it was a mistake, I swear." Shang-Chi's chair scraped loudly against the floor. A mistake that could have killed her. Shireen grabbed his sleeve, feeling the storm rising in him. "It's okay," she whispered. "I'm fine." He turned to her, and for a fleeting second, the fury melted into something else, fear. "No," he said, softer now. "You're not." Later, she learned it wasn't a mistake. Someone had laced her drink with blood to test if she was human at all. After that, he rarely let her out of his sight. When she went to the garden, he followed at a distance. When she walked the halls, she felt his gaze in every shadow. It should have been suffocating, but instead it felt like safety, a dangerous, intoxicating kind. Their moments together became strange little rituals, quiet breakfasts before the house woke, arguments that ended in laughter, and long silences heavy with everything they wouldn't say aloud. Sometimes, he'd reach out, brush a strand of hair from her face, or let his fingers graze hers as he passed her cup. The smallest contact could set her heart racing for hours. She didn't know when it began, the ache, the wanting, but she felt it growing like wildfire between them, hot and secret. One evening, she found him on the terrace, shirt half unbuttoned, the moonlight painting his skin silver. He didn't turn when she approached. "You shouldn't be here," he said. "Why not?" "The moon's too full." Her heart skipped. "And that's bad." He gave a hollow laugh. "You have no idea." The marks on his neck, faint, glowing scars, pulsed brighter with every breath. His veins shimmered like red threads beneath pale skin. Sweat beaded his forehead, his jaw tight with restraint. "Gee," she whispered, "you're in pain." He shook his head. "No, I'm the pain." He staggered forward, gripping the railing until the marble cracked beneath his hand. "Every full moon, it gets worse. It burns me from the inside. I feel like I'm devouring myself." She wanted to touch him, but something in his voice stopped her. "How long have you lived like this?" He finally looked at her, eyes glowing faintly crimson. "Every Sheng heir dies before 30. It's our family's curse. We're born to bleed, to crave, to destroy." Her breath caught, and no one can stop it. "Not yet, but my blood only delays the inevitable," he interrupted. "You can't save me, Shireen." "Maybe not," she said quietly, "but I can try." That night, she didn't sleep. She wandered the mansion's endless halls, trying to piece together truths buried in shadows. Every portrait on the wall seemed to watch her, every Sheng heir with the same dark eyes and tragic gaze. She stopped before one painting in particular, a young man who looked eerily like Shang-Chi, painted beside a woman with a pale throat and frightened eyes. In the corner of the frame, a single red word had been scratched into the paint. "Cursed." Days passed. Shireen began noticing things others didn't. Servants whispering about missing maids, strange deliveries to the underground chambers, the way the doctor always avoided sunlight. But through it all, Shang-Chi became the constant she couldn't let go of. When rivals cornered her in the hall, mocking her usefulness, he appeared before they could finish their sentence. When she stumbled in the courtyard, he was already there to catch her. Once, when she asked him why he kept saving her, he smirked faintly and said, "Maybe I just don't like anyone else touching what's mine." Her heart shouldn't have fluttered, but it did. The forbidden attraction between them grew, too strong to ignore, too dangerous to name. Sometimes, she'd wake in the middle of the night and find him standing outside her door, silent, watching her through the glass. Sometimes she'd feel his hand brush her shoulder in passing, and it felt like electricity. Each touch, each glance, each stolen word drew them closer to the edge of something they both feared but couldn't resist. He was the curse she should have fled from. She was the heartbeat he shouldn't have heard. And yet in the dim halls of the Shung mansion, between blood and lies and betrayal, something fragile and beautiful bloomed. Not salvation, not redemption, just love, dark, dangerous, and utterly forbidden. Every time their eyes met, it felt like temptation in its purest form, a love that could heal or destroy, but never stay hidden. Beneath the curse, beneath the danger, their hearts had already chosen each other. When love becomes the very curse you were meant to break, would you fight it or surrender to its darkness? The night began in silence. No wind, no rustle of leaves, only the moon, heavy and swollen, bleeding silver light through the velvet clouds. Ruan Shireen stood in front of the mirror in the room the Shungs had prepared for her. The gown they gave her shimmered like moonlight itself, delicate silk that clung to her skin, too soft, too white, too much like a sacrifice. Behind her, the reflection of the mansion stretched endlessly. Corridors of darkness, portraits of dead heirs whose faces looked disturbingly familiar. She felt the weight of 1,000 eyes upon her. They all died before 30. The words of the family matriarch still echoed in her mind. And tonight, she was supposed to stop history from repeating. Earlier that day, she had learned the truth. The real reason the Shungs had brought her here. It wasn't just her blood type. It wasn't just compatibility. It was prophecy. Her blood was rare. It could save Shang-Chi or kill him. A perfect balance between life and death, fate and ruin. The family's advisor, Master Wei, had said it so plainly, as if her existence were a mathematical equation. Under the full moon, if your love is true, your blood will cleanse his curse. But if your heart wavers, if even a single shadow of doubt remains, it will end him. When she asked why, he only smiled. Because destiny is cruel, Miss Ruan, and the gods love irony. Now, as the moon rose to its peak, the air in the mansion began to shift. The servants had vanished. Candles flickered out one by one, until only the faintest glow remained. A knock at the door. She didn't need to turn around to know it was him. "Are you ready?" Shang-Chi's voice was soft, roughened by restraint. She turned. He looked almost human tonight, the sharp lines of his face softened by moonlight, the faint pulse of red beneath his skin barely visible. But his eyes betrayed the storm within. "Ready," she whispered. "To save you or destroy you?" He didn't answer. He simply reached out a hand. "Whatever happens, it ends tonight." She took it. The ritual chamber was older than the mansion itself, carved deep into the stone foundations, lined with strange runes that pulsed with crimson light. In the center lay a marble dais, its surface etched with symbols that shimmered as they approached. The air felt alive, vibrating with invisible energy. "Once it begins," Master Wei's voice echoed faintly from the shadows, "no one can stop it. The blood, the bond, the moon, they must become one." Then he vanished, leaving them alone in the dark. Shireen's heart pounded as Shang-Chi stood before her, the glow of the runes dancing across his pale skin. "I never wanted this for you," he said quietly. "If you walk away now, I won't stop you." She shook her head. "If I walk away, you'll die." "I'll die either way," he murmured, almost smiling. "But if it's by your hands, maybe it'll be beautiful." Her chest tightened. "Don't say that." He stepped closer, and the heat between them grew unbearable. His breath brushed her cheek, his voice low, trembling. "You said once that you weren't afraid of monsters." "I'm not." "Then remember that." The ritual began. Moonlight spilled through a circular opening above, painting them both in silver fire. Shireen felt her heartbeat sync with his, fast, wild, uneven. The runes pulsed brighter, responding to their blood. When he touched her, it wasn't gentle, it was desperate, aching, full of years of loneliness breaking free at once. Her fingers traced the marks along his neck, the ones that burned crimson every time his curse stirred. "Does it hurt?" she whispered. "Only when I'm away from you." And then his lips were on hers, cold at first, then fevered, as though he was trying to breathe life he no longer had. It was love, it was hunger, it was everything forbidden. The air thickened. The glow beneath his skin flared violently, spreading down his arms like wildfire. "Chi!" He gasped, staggering back. His veins erupted in crimson light. His pupils dilated, and his body convulsed as the curse awoke. "Get away!" he roared. "I can't stop it." But she didn't move. "Shireen, I'll hurt you." She ran to him anyway. He fell to his knees, claws digging into the stone, his body twisting as if something inside him was tearing him apart. His fangs lengthened, his voice distorted into something inhuman. Her blood, her scent, filled the air, and it drove him wild. She knelt before him, trembling but unflinching. "Gee, look at me." "Leave," he growled, but it came out as a snarl. "No." She cupped his face, ignoring the heat, the tremor, the danger. "You're not the curse. You're the man I love." His eyes flickered red and gold, human and monster warring within. "Don't say that," he rasped. "Don't love me. It'll kill us both. Then we'll die together." She leaned forward and pressed her lips against his, just as the curse erupted fully, a burst of light that tore through the chamber. Pain lanced through her body. She could feel her blood being pulled, drawn toward him, as if the curse itself was feeding on her love. "T," she cried, gripping his shoulders as his body convulsed. Her vision blurred, her strength fading, but she refused to let go. And then, just as the light reached its peak, his body went still. Silence. For one agonizing moment, she thought she'd lost him. Then he opened his eyes. The red was gone. Only silver remained, calm, luminous, alive. He reached for her trembling hand and kissed it. "You're still here." She smiled weakly. "I told you, I'm not afraid of monsters." He rested his forehead against hers, his breath steady now. "You shouldn't have risked your life for me." "I didn't risk it," she whispered, closing her eyes. "I gave it." When dawn broke, the moonlight faded, and the curse lay quiet for the first time in generations. But the bond between them had changed something deeper. Shang-Chi could feel her heartbeat within his own, as if part of her lived inside him now. And Shireen, though pale and weak, could feel his warmth in her veins, his darkness pulsing softly beneath her skin. It was no longer clear where one ended and the other began. They had crossed the line between love and destruction and found beauty in a nightmare. In a single night of moonlight and madness, love became their salvation and their sin. What began as a ritual to cheat death had turned into something far more dangerous, a love story written in blood and moonlight. If saving the one you love meant surrendering your soul, would you do it, knowing that love itself could be your undoing? The days after the ritual felt like waking from a fever dream. For the first time since she had come to the Sheng mansion, Ruan Shireen could breathe without fear. Shang-Chi's eyes no longer glowed with crimson fire. The marks along his neck had faded to faint silver lines. The curse that had haunted generations of Sheng heirs finally seemed to have loosened its grip. He slept, deeply, peacefully, his skin warm instead of cold, his breath steady instead of ragged. Shireen stayed beside him, fingers brushing his hand, afraid to believe it was real. But miracles in the Sheng mansion never came without a price. At first, everyone praised her. The servants bowed deeper. The matriarch's tone softened. Even the cold stone halls seemed to hum with cautious relief. But beneath the smiles, Shireen could feel it. Envy, suspicion, the whisper of treachery crawling just beneath the surface. She caught fragments of hushed conversations as she passed. The girl's blood truly worked? For now. But what happens when it stops? The young master isn't meant to outlive the curse. If he does, others will lose their place. Their words lingered in her mind like smoke. She wanted to ignore them, to hold on to the fragile peace she had earned, but something darker was already moving beneath the mansion's golden calm. One evening, as dusk painted the walls in shades of dying fire, Shireen found the matriarch speaking in the garden with Shang-Chi's aunt, Lady Min. They didn't see her at first. The boy's recovery is unnatural, Lady Min hissed, her jeweled hands trembling. If he lives, the inheritance shifts. The power shifts. We cannot allow a girl of unknown origin to alter the family's fate. The matriarch's silence was worse than anger. Finally, she said, "Be careful. Min destiny has already chosen its price." But Lady Min's eyes gleamed like polished glass. "Then I'll make destiny bleed." That night, Shireen woke to whispers outside her door. Two servants, Master Wei's name among them. He says the blood link can be reversed. But it will kill her. That's the point. Her stomach dropped. The ritual hadn't ended the curse. It had only transferred it. Her life force now fed Chi's survival. If she weakened, so would he. And someone in this house wanted him weak. Shireen slipped out of bed, her bare feet silent on the marble floor. She followed the voices down the hall, through the servants' wing, and into a locked study. The door wasn't difficult to open. The Sheng mansion was built on secrets, and she had learned to move quietly among them. Inside, candlelight flickered over scattered documents, bloodline records, contracts, and one file stamped with her name. She froze. Ruan Shireen, not an orphan, not a random match. Her mother's signature marked every page. At the bottom, in neat handwriting, the words that tore through her chest like glass. Payment received in full. Child delivered to the Shengs for genetic compatibility testing. Her mother had sold her blood, her body, her fate for money. Shireen's vision blurred with tears. Every breath hurt. Every word on the page felt like betrayal carved into her bones. She didn't hear him enter the room until his voice cut through the silence. "Shireen." She turned. Shang-Chi stood at the doorway, the candlelight painting gold across his pale skin. His gaze fell to the papers in her shaking hands, and then to her face. "You knew?" she whispered. He shook his head. "No, not until now." "Then how long?" Her voice broke. "How long have I been nothing more than a transaction to your family?" He crossed the room in 2 strides, his hand reaching for hers, but she stepped back. "Don't," she said. "Not until I understand what any of this means." He stopped, his jaw tightening. "It means you were never the curse." Her heart stumbled. "What?" He took the papers from her trembling fingers and laid them on the desk. I read the old prophecy once. It spoke of a blood mirror, a soul whose love could either shatter the curse or bind it forever. You were never chosen to destroy me, Shireen. You were chosen to save me. Her throat tightened. Then why does it feel like I'm dying a little more every day? He hesitated, then said the words she'd feared. Because my life is tied to yours now. The curse was never broken. It simply changed hosts. You carry it too. Shireen sank to the floor, her breath trembling. So if I die? He knelt beside her. Then I die too. For a long moment, neither spoke. The only sound was the faint rustle of their breaths mingling. Hers fragile, his steadier now because of her. You should hate me, she whispered. I do. He cupped her face gently. I hate you for saving me when I didn't deserve it. For making me feel alive. For making me terrified to lose you. Tears spilled down her cheeks. Then protect me. Please. His gaze hardened, a dangerous fire lighting behind his eyes. I will. From them. From fate. From anyone who touches you. The next night, everything unraveled. A servant loyal to Lady Min slipped poison into Shireen's tea. The scent was faint, masked by herbs. But before she could drink, Shang-Chi appeared, his hand knocking the cup from her grasp. The porcelain shattered. The liquid hissed as it touched the marble floor, burning through it like acid. His voice was low, lethal, so they dared to try. He found a servant before dawn. The mansion woke to screams, the kind that left no doubt about Shang-Chi's power or his fury. By the time the matriarch arrived, he stood in the courtyard, blood splattered across his shirt, eyes glowing with quiet rage. She was supposed to die, he said, his voice trembling with restraint. They wanted her gone. They wanted me broken. The matriarch's face turned to stone. Then let them learn what happens when you break a Shang. Later, when the mansion finally fell silent again, Shireen found him sitting by the fire, his expression unreadable. She touched his shoulder gently. Gee, what will you do now? He turned to her, and the look in his eyes made her shiver, not from fear, but from the depth of his devotion. I'll destroy anyone who tries to take you from me, he said softly, even if that means burning my own blood. She wanted to stop him, to tell him vengeance would only chain them tighter to the curse. But part of her, the part that had bled for him, fought for him, loved him, understood. Their destinies were too tangled now, too soaked in blood to separate. That night, she dreamed of her mother, weeping at a table, counting money stained with guilt. And in the dream, Shireen didn't hate her. She only whispered, "You sold me to love, not to death." When she woke, Shang-Chi was beside her, watching the dawn light crawl across her face. "Sleep," he murmured. "You're safe now." She smiled faintly. Safe is such a fragile word. He brushed her hair back, his touch both tender and possessive. "Then I'll make it stronger." Fate had chosen her blood. Destiny had chosen their love, but betrayal had chosen their pain. In saving him, she had bound herself to the curse. And yet, in his arms, the curse no longer felt like death. It felt like belonging. If the person you loved carried both your salvation and your destruction in their veins, would you still hold them close, knowing the price might be your soul? The night the war began, the moon bled red over the Shang estate. Flames crawled across the horizon, and the once silent mansion trembled with the echoes of betrayal. The ancient halls that had kept secrets for centuries now screamed them into the night. Ruan Shireen stood in the center of it all, her gown torn, her hands slick with blood, some of it hers, most of it not. Every breath burned, every heartbeat screamed the same truth. This was how it had to end. It started hours earlier. Shang-Chi had grown stronger since the ritual. Faster, sharper, almost inhuman. But with his strength came whispers. The family's elders called it awakening. Master Wei called it corruption. Shireen called it the beginning of the end. One night, while Qi slept, she followed the faint sound of chanting beneath the mansion. The old tunnels ran deep, far below the foundation, built long before the Shangs had risen to power. She found an iron door marked with ancient sigils, and inside it, the truth. Scrolls, bones, Blood seals, a mural that told a story older than any of them. The Shang ancestors had not been blessed by gods, but cursed by their own greed. Centuries ago, they had enslaved a demonic creature, a being of blood and shadow, and bound it into their bloodline. Each heir was born carrying a fragment of its power and its madness. That was the curse, not punishment, possession. Master Wei had been trying for years to extract the demon's essence, not to destroy it, but to control it, to become immortal. And Shireen's blood, tied to Qi's life, was the key to unlocking it. When she returned to warn Qi, it was already too late. The household had turned against them. Lady Min's soldiers filled the halls, and Master Wei stood at their head, holding the same vial of her blood he had taken during the ritual. "Did you really think love could undo what destiny sealed?" he sneered. "The curse belongs to the Shangs, and now it belongs to me." Shireen stepped in front of Qi, trembling but defiant. "You'll have to go through me first." Master Wei smiled coldly. That was always the plan. The fight exploded like thunder. Qi moved faster than human sight, one moment across the room, the next breaking through soldiers like smoke and ash. His eyes blazed red, his movements feral. The curse inside him surged with fury, feeding on his rage. Shireen fought beside him, her body weaker, but her will unbroken. Every strike she landed felt like defying fate itself. But Master Wei was prepared. With a single command, the cultists activated a circle drawn in blood on the marble floor. Runes lit up beneath Qi's feet, and his body convulsed. The ground split open. A black mist poured out, and from it rose the outline of something monstrous. Wings of fire, eyes like molten gold. The demon, bound to the Shangs for centuries, was awake, and it wanted freedom. "Shireen, run!" Qi shouted, falling to his knees as the entity's voice tore through his mind. "You are mine, blood of the cursed. You cannot cage me forever." He clawed at his chest, where light and shadow warred beneath his skin. His fangs bared, his body shaking violently. Master Wei raised the vial high. "Her blood can separate you from it. Once the ritual completes, I'll control both you and the beast." He began chanting. The circle's glow intensified, and Shireen felt her veins ignite. Her blood, the bond between them, was being pulled from her drop by drop. She screamed as her knees buckled. She tried to reach her, but the chains of dark energy wrapped around him, burning his skin. "Shireen," she looked up, vision swimming. "If it's my blood he wants," she gasped, "then I'll decide how it's used." With her last strength, she tore a dagger from the ground and plunged it in her palm, letting her blood spill freely onto the runes. The symbols flared red, then white, their order breaking, the spell unraveling. "Stop her!" Master Wei shouted, but she was already free. In a blur, he was behind the traitor, eyes glowing like twin infernos. His hand pierced Wei's chest, and the cult leader's scream echoed through the chamber as his body turned to dust. But the victory came too late. The demon, unbound by the broken circle, rose in full, vast and terrible, its form coiling like smoke around Qi's body. "You think killing him will save you?" It whispered into Shireen's mind. "He is mine, and so are you." Qi's voice came through the haze, strained and raw. "Shireen, I can't hold it much longer." She stumbled toward him, her hands trembling. "Then don't. Let me." He shook his head violently. "No, you'll die." Her tears mingled with blood. "If that's what it takes to end this, then so be it." Before he could stop her, she pressed her bleeding palm to his chest. Light erupted between them, golden, blinding, searing through shadow. The demon roared, its scream shaking the foundations of the mansion. Qi's body arched in pain. Shireen's strength faltered. She could feel it, the curse, the darkness, the centuries of suffering, pulling her under. But she didn't let go. "Look at me, Qi," she cried through the chaos. "You're not the curse. You're more than this." His hand found hers, gripping it tight. "Shireen, don't leave me. I'll always be with you," she whispered, and then the light swallowed them both. When the explosion faded, silence returned. The flames had died. The cult was gone. Shang-Chi knelt in the ruins, holding her limp body in his arms. Her blood had stained his shirt, her pulse barely there. "No," he whispered, voice breaking. "Don't you dare leave me." Her lips parted, faint but steady. "It's over." He looked down. The scars along his arms had vanished. The glow beneath his skin was gone. The curse had finally been severed. But she was fading. He pressed his forehead to hers, tears falling freely now. "You freed me, Shireen. You freed us all." Her eyes fluttered open one last time. "Then promise me one thing. Anything. Live, even if I can't." He shook his head. "No. I'll live because you did." Her smile was soft, trembling, and then her body went still. The first rays of dawn slipped through the shattered roof. Shang-Chi sat in the wreckage, her body in his arms, his eyes fixed on the light. For the first time in centuries, the Shang estate felt pure. No whispers, no shadows, no curse. Only silence and love. In a storm of blood and fire, love had conquered what centuries of power could not. Shireen's sacrifice broke the curse that bound generations, proving that sometimes redemption is not won by strength, but by surrender. If destroying the darkness meant losing the one who brought you light, would you still choose to save the world, knowing your heart would never heal? The fire had died, but the world was still burning. Smoke curled through the broken halls of the Shang estate, mingling with the soft whisper of dawn. Ash fell like gray snow, settling over shattered glass and silent bodies. And in the middle of it all, Shireen lay cradled in Shang-Chi's arms, her pulse faint, her skin cold as marble. The demon was gone. Its screams had vanished into nothing. The curse that had haunted his bloodline for centuries had been torn apart by her sacrifice. But victory came at a price that even eternity could not repay. She could feel the last of her warmth fading against him. "Wake up," he whispered, his voice cracking. "Please, Shireen, open your eyes." Nothing. He pressed his forehead against hers, his tears mixing with the blood still staining her lips. "You can't leave me like this. You promised." No answer. No heartbeat. A strangled sound escaped his throat, part sob, part roar. The world tilted, and he fell forward, his body shaking with grief too heavy to carry. The crimson mark that had cursed him for decades burned once more, not with pain this time, but with loss. He buried his face in her hair. "If this is what freedom costs, I'd rather have the chains." Then, for the first time in his long and tortured existence, he prayed. Not to gods, not to fate, but to her. "Shireen," he murmured, his voice breaking into a whisper. "If love ever meant anything, give it back to me. Take my life, take my blood, just come back." A single tear fell from her cheek, his, not hers, landing on her heart. And then, impossibly, the air shifted. Her fingers twitched. She froze. The glow beneath her skin, faint, silvery, began to pulse. It was soft, fragile, but unmistakably alive. He stared, breathless, as her eyes fluttered open. They weren't the same brown as before. They shimmered faintly, like moonlight reflected in still water. "Chi," her voice was barely a whisper. "Why are you crying?" He let out a sound halfway between a laugh and a sob, pulling her tightly against his chest. "Because I thought I lost you." She smiled weakly. "You can't lose what's already yours." He pulled back just enough to look at her. "You died, Shireen." "I think I did." Her fingers brushed his cheek. "But something brought me back." He frowned. "What do you mean?" She looked down at the blood still staining his shirt. Her blood, the one that had bound them since the beginning. "It's gone," she said softly. "The curse. It's not in you anymore." She looked at his hands. The glowing veins that had haunted him all his life were gone. For the first time in centuries, his heart beat without the taste of blood or shadow. And hers echoed with the faint rhythm of his own. Weeks turned into months. The Shang estate was rebuilt, though Chi refused to let it return to its former coldness. The walls were lighter now. The air no longer reeked of secrets. The world believed Shireen had died that night. And in a way, she had. The woman who had arrived at the Shang mansion, desperate, frightened, and mortal, no longer existed. What remained was something new, something touched by both life and death. She could feel it in her veins. Chi's essence, the residue of his curse, now purified within her blood. She wasn't human anymore. Not entirely. And he, the vampire who had once cursed his own existence, now walked in sunlight without pain. They were two halves of the same miracle, living on borrowed time, gifted by love. On the first day of spring, Chi asked her to follow him somewhere. They left the city behind, traveling for hours until the mountains opened to a vast cliffside bathed in mist. Beefing Cliff, the place where she had first seen him not as a monster, but as a man. The same place where the nightmare had begun. The sky was clear that night. Stars shimmered like scattered diamonds, and below them, the river glowed faintly, waves touched by thousands of bioluminescent fireflies. Chi turned to her, the soft wind lifting strands of her hair. "Do you remember the first time you saw me? I remember thinking you looked like trouble," she teased. He smiled. "You weren't wrong." He stepped closer, his hand finding hers. "I've died 1,000 times, Shireen. Sometimes in battle, sometimes in dreams, sometimes in the quiet moments when I thought I'd lost you. But every time, it's your face that pulled me back." She looked up, eyes glistening. "And now," he said, kneeling slowly before her, "I want to stop dying." From his pocket, he drew out a ring, a small silver band carved with the symbols of their curse, now inverted, transformed into light. "You gave me life when I'd already died 1,000 times," he said, his voice soft, trembling with emotion. "You loved me when I didn't deserve it. You saw the man inside the monster. Shireen, will you stay in my darkness forever?" Her breath caught. The stars reflected in her eyes like tears she didn't want to shed. She knelt beside him, cupping his face. "When love turns dark," she whispered, "I'll still choose you." He closed his eyes, leaning into her touch. The moment hung between them, fragile, infinite. Then she kissed him, slow and deep, under the glittering sky. The stars seemed to burn brighter, the fireflies swirling around them in silent blessing. As the night deepened, they stood at the edge of the cliff, looking out over the glowing valley. "What happens now?" she asked quietly. Chi wrapped his arm around her shoulders, pulling her close. "We live. For how long? As long as the blood still sings between us." She smiled faintly. "Then eternity might not be long enough." He turned to her, eyes soft but burning. "It doesn't matter how long eternity is, as long as it's with you." The wind carried the scent of jasmine and rain, and somewhere in the distance, the faint chime of temple bells echoed. For the first time since their cursed fates had entwined, the night felt kind. Their story had begun with blood and darkness. It had survived betrayal, sacrifice, and death itself. But now, standing beneath a sky that seemed reborn, Shireen finally understood. Love was not the absence of pain. It was the choice to keep loving through it. When the wind shifted, she swore she heard the faint whisper of the demon's voice, not as a curse, but as a benediction. "From blood to eternity, you have become one." They didn't speak after that. Words were too small for what they had become. As dawn broke, the first light spilled over them, golden and alive. She turned his face toward it, unflinching. Shireen reached for his hand, and their fingers intertwined, a promise written in the language of forever. From the ashes of a curse rose something stronger than immortality. Love reborn through blood, pain, and devotion. Death had tried to part them, but in the end, it only made their bond eternal. If love could outlive death itself, would you surrender to forever, even knowing eternity might never let you rest? Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as crazier and more intriguing as you can ever imagine. So do check it out. Click on the image showing on your screen right now to watch the next one.